Food inflation, it's a hard nut to crack. That's what some experts are saying. But why is it so persistently difficult? Hi, I'm Brian Lilley, political columnist for the Toronto Sun. Food inflation is likely to become a headache for Liberal leader and Prime Minister Mark Carney. Why? Because when he was sworn in after the election back in May, he told people to hold them to account based on the price of their groceries. Check it out.
Well, I think the way Canadians will hold account by their experience at the grocery store, when they're paying their electricity bill, when they or their children are looking for a place to live. So it will be their experiences how they will they will form those judgments, and then of course accountability comes at the ballot box.
Well, the new food inflation numbers are out. Well, overall inflation is at 1.9%, driven mostly by the price of gas going down in August, but food inflation is at 3.4% overall, 3.5% for groceries, and then you get into some categories like meat, and it's 7.2%, 12.7% for beef, and there's some that are even worse, but I'll save those for our guest, Dr. Sylvain Charlebois, the food professor, visiting scholar at McGill University in Montreal. Sylvain, you were kind of expecting these numbers, weren't you?
I was, unfortunately. And we've been saying it since, I guess, March. On March the 4th, if you recall, former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau decided to implement counter tariffs against the U.S., making Canada the only other country than China to do that. And since the beginning, I've always thought it was a bad idea, especially when it comes to food. And
But how does that affect our food? Because most people are just going to think that we tariffed, steel and aluminum, and the things they put tariffs on for us.
We were in breach of CUSMA. And this is something that a lot of Canadians didn't realize until probably this summer when, a video went viral this summer, if you recall, filming the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to Canada, stating that we were in breach. And he was right. Finally, someone said it. And it impacted many, many verticals at the grocery store, including coffee, tea, pasta, spices, nuts, lots of goods, of course, citrus, some fresh products, not a whole lot, but some fresh products. And so it was just a matter of time before we saw food inflation being impacted by counter tariffs. And that's exactly what we got in both July and August.
So I don't even know what the logic or the thinking behind putting tariffs on that would be. During the election, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre supported the idea of putting counter tariffs, but he said, I believe he was the first to say, we'll apply them in a way that has maximum impact but doesn't hurt Canadians. Mark Carney quickly copied that language. And I thought, I remember thinking at the time, you don't want to be putting tariffs on celery from Bakersfield, California in the middle of the winter when we can't grow celery. Why would we tariff coffee? We don't grow coffee here. There is no way for us to say, you know what? Let's plant a coffee tree out back and put Juan Valdez out of business. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I spoke to the Coffee Association of Canada, and there is a tea association in Canada as well. Both were scratching their heads in terms of why are we tariffing tea and coffee when we have no sector to protect in the first place.
And the Americans don't produce it either.
That's right, but a lot of it is packaged in the U.S. So right now, what we're facing at the grocery store is a double whammy when it comes to tariffs. For example, we know now that the U.S. is applying a 50% tariff on anything that's coming from Brazil. Well, guess what was happening? So we get 50% from Brazil, and we added an extra 25% coming in. And with small margins, and this is the difference, Brian, between food and other sectors. With food, margins are so low, prices have to be adjusted very, very quickly. And that's why it didn't take long before we saw differences at the grocery store.
Yeah, margins are generally 2 to 4% in the food
approximately.
sector.
Yeah.
So why beef then? Because we produce a lot of beef here, and I know there's an integrated market with the United States, but I was just in a grocery store yesterday and I looked in the beef counter and
you had a heart attack.
Yeah. And it wasn't from eating too many steaks. It was from the price. But then I looked and there were cheaper options, and I'm scratching my head at this. Cheaper options are steak brought in from Australia.
Well, yeah.
So I'll ask you about the Australia in a minute, but why? What's driving the price of beef up? Is it the tariffs, or do we have something else going on?
No, it's not a tariff story there. It's really a drought. So back in 2014, we experienced the same thing. A drought affected many regions in North America, making animal feed more expensive. And when that happens, producers sell off their herds quickly because it costs them about $75 a day to feed one cow. So we want to get rid of them as soon as possible. This time around, about 2 years ago, the majority of the continent was impacted by a drought, making feed costs much higher. Same thing happened, but the difference between now and 2014 is that producers are checking out, they're selling out, they're cashing in, they're getting their money, and they're leaving the industry.
So they're
not
not
rebuilding their herds.
They're not coming back with a new herd the next year.
That's right. So inventories are extremely low. Right now in Canada, our herd size is the same as it was back in 1989. And we have 15
Population's a
million
little
more
bit
Canadians.
bigger, yeah.
Yeah. And so in the US, same thing. But their herd size is the same as it was back in 1951. So we do not expect beef prices to normalize themselves, if you will, until probably early 2027.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love beef, so your
Me
words.
too. Me
your
too.
words
So
hit.
here's, but grocers are trying hard to make you, the beef consumer, happy by buying alternatives that may be affordable, and that's why you probably saw Australian steak out there.
So that, or the one that worries me is when I see ungraded beef.
Yes.
We all know the grading system, AA, AAA, Prime, where you go to the States, it's AA choice, Prime, that sort of thing. We've aligned a little bit with the Prime side on the Americans. I don't know what ungraded beef is. It's like the socks I remember my mother bought me when I was a kid that said 100% unknown material. I don't want this stuff near me. What's ungraded beef?
Well, it doesn't mean unsafe. It just means that the country of origin doesn't recognize the same grading system that we have in Canada. So the United States actually have the same grading system. So if you see ungraded beef, chances are it's coming from Mexico, and chances are it comes from an older animal. So I've actually tried Mexican beef in Canada. I've actually tried Mexican beef in Mexico, and it's not the same. It's not the
No.
same. It's cheaper, but not the same.
What is driving food inflation overall, aside from these issues around the tariffs? Because you've got many products going up. It has been persistent for years now. And, I pulled the "it's a hard nut to crack" from a headline I saw. Why has it been so difficult to get down? Core inflation at 1.9%. It's been in the range for quite some time, but I was just looking up. In July, it was 3.4. In June, it was 2.8. It has been persistently higher than the core inflation for months now.
That's right. And I think right now we're in the middle of a case study teaching us right now that companies here in Canada have fewer options than in the United States. Look at the food inflation rate in the United States. It is much lower despite Trump's tariff bonanza that he has implemented for months now. We were expecting food inflation and inflation to explode in the US. It's not happening because, well, companies are more efficient in the US, and two, well, when Trump said to Walmart, eat up the tariff, well, he knew Walmart could eat up tariffs. In Canada, our companies can't. And if, say, for
Why?
example,
What's the difference?
Efficiency, productivity, basically. And supply chains are managed very differently in Canada. So, for example, in Canada, if you have a supplier of peanuts because you're making peanut butter, well, you may actually have just one or two options. And if that price goes up, well, you have to suck it up. In the United States, well, they're a huge economy. A lot of people want to sell to the US. So if you're making peanut butter in the US and you're buying peanuts, guess what? Many people want you to buy their peanuts. That's the difference between the US, and that's why going up against the US with counter tariffs was just an awful decision for our businesses and consumers.
Speak to the claim that I know we're going to see in the comments that says, no, this is just about the fact that we don't have any competition in Canada. We've got 3 or 4 companies that control everything, and they are monsters who are price gouging.
Yeah. I'm expecting it. In fact, I've been preparing for it for a month now because I knew more and more people will continue to say that without any evidence. And if you take some time to look at some evidence, you'll see that there's just no evidence of gouging. And I would encourage listeners to look at 2 metrics. One, gross margins. Gross margins are important to look at. Why? Because it's revenues minus the cost of goods. If that goes up, it means they're probably gouging you. Okay. And if you look at both, if you look at Metro, Loblaws, and Sobeys, all 3 of them, their gross margins are pretty stable. And I've actually posted a graph on X, I think it was yesterday. The other metric you would look at is same store food sales. When that metric is below food inflation, it means that the company is not riding the food inflation wave, okay? It's making money selling you other things like cosmetics, clothing, prescription drugs, and things like that. So right now you're seeing 3 grocers that are well managed, and they are making money, but not necessarily with food.
You and I sound like a couple of old men sitting around complaining about the price of food, because I look around my neighborhood here in downtown Toronto, where I look at numbers that you posted recently, and well, young people, they don't seem to notice. They're just, getting on the app and ordering more food. What did you say the other day? This is replacing or becoming an extension of the kitchen?
Yeah, for the younger generations, their smartphone is basically their new kitchen, basically. 38% of Gen Zs are using some of these apps on a regular basis, like DoorDash or Uber Eats. 38%. Millennials, 32%. Boomers, 12%.
And you forgot about Gen X, as everyone does.
I'm a Gen X, yes. Are you a Gen X?
Yes.
You are? Okay,
everyone forgets us.
Well, I'm used to it, so I don't talk about myself, I guess, or us. But
Yeah.
Gen X is basically in the middle. But
Yeah.
So the cost of convenience, I'm not sure it's appreciated by the younger generations. As you know, this summer we actually learned that the Competition Bureau was suing DoorDash for not disclosing prices and fees as transparently as it should. And I'm not sure if younger consumers understand how much more it costs to get their food when they actually order food through these apps. It's just, it can add up, especially with fast food. If you order, I don't know, a couple of hamburgers, fries, drinks, it can add anywhere between 20 to 60% more on your bill. It's just unbelievable.
I use the apps from time to time. I see what it costs, and that's why I go out and get the food. Either cook it at home or pick it up.
But fine dining, I mean, if you actually go beyond the mass chains, because like big chains dominate these platforms, but if you look beyond that, the noise of the McDonald's and the Starbucks, you'll find some really nice restaurants that are using those platforms. And with fine dining, you can actually save because you avoid the expensive bottle of wine. You avoid the expensive tip on the bottle of wine.
Yep.
And so there's probably some deals there, but for fast food, it's pretty darn expensive.
All right, Sylvain, always a pleasure to talk to you, and we'll ask people to give their view. Let us know what you think. Drop a comment down below. Share this on social media, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.